Welcome back, everybody, to our Wednesday energy talk. My name is Jona Bryndis. I'm an energy coach, energy therapist, and visionary, and we talk about these what we call collective energies here on Wednesdays to connect the dots, maybe also just to connect and be able to. So today's energy talk is called spiritual realism, and this sounds very mental, it sounds very metaphysical. The actual energy talk here is about karmic aspects, and the reason why I thought to call it spiritual realism is because once a person has access to the broader picture and is becoming able to connect some of their own journeys, purpose, meaning, value, and so forth, life changes. It changes in a way that it simplifies, that it becomes more real. And I want to go through some of these stages that we go through on our journey as a human here in 3D, and then compare this with our journey as a soul self, and perhaps this helps you here in this eclipse time, that will be going on for another year and a half, this time of deeper inner revelations. And in the energy updates, I called this an amplifier, I called this downloads. Those are all energy lingo words. This is just how this looks like. It looks like that we are being infused or inspired with these accelerators. And I want to start right here what these accelerators mean for us. There is, if you have this awareness that there's something that you're being pulled into, like your higher expression, that your higher potential, your soul purpose, then there is something that you can feel intervenes at times. So there are situational interventions where you have inner guidance, strong inner guidance come in, or a hunch, or simply things that people feel are fated, where you avoided, like, say, some kind of drama or crisis because you had that random thought that you had to do something else. Things like this happen to all of us throughout our lifetimes, serendipities, synchronicities, and so forth. Those are all things that every human experiences, regardless of the belief system. It is for us energetically sensitive, that those of us who are highly sensitive to the energies altogether, it's almost like a day-to-day business, isn't it? These kind of hunches, serendipities, inner guidance, seemingly random things that happen, but that kind of turn out to be game changers for you sometimes, or preventers. We have a specific kind of intervention that we call a true self intervention. That's when you get this like really, really, really strong, don't do this or do this. So I saw all your heart, so I reckon that you guys all know what I'm talking about. But I do want to hear from you how these things have come forward in your life. What are some of these typical experiences? And I don't even want to call them spiritual, but let's just go with this because that's how most people would probably call this. Give us an example. Hi.
Hi. Well, I'm 65 in a moment, so I've experienced this a few times in my life. One time was a boyfriend who we lived together, and I knew that it was over a long time ago, but and then suddenly it was like, wham! It's now. It's now. I mean, right now, and there's no doubt about it. You feel it in every cell of your body. Remember that very. And even though a boyfriend can try to persuade you to stay, it was so strong in me. So
nothing could deter you from that.
Nothing. Yes.
It was, you
very
felt
strong,
it.
unmistakable.
Unmistakable. Okay, I love that.
Yes.
And Tina, let me ask you, when you had that feeling, did you have any kind of conflict within? Did you have doubts, or did you have, maybe not, or, you know?
No, I didn't. The only thing I was a little bit concerned about was the reaction. How do I?
Okay, the aftermath.
Where's the exit? Where's the big exit door? The aftermath. That was a little bit concerned, but it wasn't,
because you didn't know yet, right? It was an unknown to you.
Know.
You didn't know, but you knew you had to do something.
It was crystal clear.
Crystal clear. I love that. Now, if you would put this into comparison with regular states that you go through frequently, where you trying to decide where to go on vacation, or what to invest in, or what kind of job, or if you should move. If you would compare that, would you? How did this feel like from within? Did it feel like you were in absolute peace with it, an absolute coherence with it, and didn't go back and forth in your mind?
No, it was not. Normally, I can be wishy-washy about making my mind up and procrastinate really a lot. But this was, it was like, it was carved in stone. It was crystal. There was nothing.
I like
really.
Yeah, I like how you said crystal clear. And what I want to point your attention at, guys, and yours too, maybe, Tina Marie, because it is an experience that you've had yourself. You know what it felt like, so you can relate to that really well. Is that when you're in that state, there is no inner debate, there is no inner battle. There is a complete absence of this inner back and forth. Yeah, and I want all of you to take a moment now to internalize this, if you can remember what this feels like. Because, no, it's not just you. Most of us spend the majority of our day, of our life, in a place of confliction, of inner back and forth. Yeah, can you say this, and it feels true to you when you say, yes, the majority of my life is in a place of confliction. And that has to do with our own duality, and we talked about this a lot. It has to do with, just the mere fact that we are fundamentally a spirit being in a physical reality that is limited, that we experience as limiting, just due to our mortality. And this doesn't really go over well with our greater awareness, that we have something like a soul. So there is a fundamental conflict in us that we cannot resolve, so it seems. And therefore we kind of get used to this inner battle being our normal state. This is your enemy, guys. This is what you are all up against in your life. All right? Because this inner confliction, this duality, leads to a forming of your ego. Yeah, and with the ego, identity and coping mechanisms. Yeah, everything that you sort of adopt as ways to get through this. Yeah, there's lots of studies that have been done pertaining what they experience as painful from within, and there's obviously big dramatic events such as breakups and loss of a loved one and so forth, or disease. But there's one particular kind of pain that all people, regardless of gender or culture or ethnicity or beliefs, agree on, is fundamentally the most painful state, and that is the state of inner doubt, of inner dissonance. Yeah. So in psychology, that's called a cognitive dissonance, and that leads to literally a lowering of our higher brain functions. Yeah. So whenever we are in this conflict, it is not just that we experience this as discomfort, maybe even in our body. Yeah. If we spend long enough time in that space, then we will also feel this in our nervous system. We'll see this in our gland and hormone health. We'll feel this in our joints, and perhaps even, with some other physical manifestations. Yeah, because it's a resistance that we have within ourselves. But the main point that I want to make here is that we, as normal ego selves, kind of got used to it, and we are no longer questioning this. And this is the part here that relates to karma, because karma means action, a doing. Yeah, and for most of us, it actually means an undoing of something. Yeah, so it has to do with our choices. It has to do with our actions, and they need to be guided from a place, yeah, so that they lead us into this higher potential. Something happens, and that forces us to do something different, or to cope with it, or to come up with new choices. And right now, we are in a time where it's a very karmic time indeed, where through the confrontation with certain kinds of untruths, we are forced to make new choices. We're forced, as a matter of fact, to make very conscious choices. We are forced to discern. It's no longer good enough to just go by what I often call autopilot. Yeah, by the fail-safe, so that we survive our lives, which is called ego. Yeah, it is now on us to discern and decide how, let's say, these next 12 to 14 years are going to go for us. And karma brings this in by showing us something, by revealing something to us. In the energy update last week, I said, reveal that needs to be healed. And there were two main components to that. One is obviously to make the unconscious conscious and to become aware of it. But the other aspect is to also, bring this out and no longer try to hide it, knowing or understanding. That is this consciousness that allows you to understand this, that for as long as you're trying to hide it or avoid it or run away from it, you're fundamentally resisting it. And any type of resistance creates an inner battle, creates more confliction. So in other words, the more you resist, the harder it's going to get. And karma is there to kind of force you to do the things that your ego doesn't want to do, knowing that that is ultimately what will lead you to more peace, more congruence, and more power. So there is something that we can all feel comes in like sort of God's mysterious ways, a life plan, something, some part of you seems to be more clearly aligned to what your experience needs to be in order to grow than your ego awareness. Decide and discern. It's all about making conscious choices. And how can we make conscious choices? By becoming more conscious in the first place. Yeah, so developing our consciousness that then allows us to discern truths. Yeah, who and what am I truly? What do I truly need? What do I truly want? Where do I want my life to go? Those are the fundamental questions that we all deal with throughout our life, throughout history. It is programmed into us to seek that, to seek our higher expression, to seek that place of inner peace, of inner harmony, where we are no longer battling with ourselves or battling with something outside of ourselves. And that's then how this guidance comes in. It shows us how these outer battles are linked to our inner battles. It shows us how our, inner relationship with ourselves, with our true selves, through the health of our outer relationships. It shows us how our inner relationship to abundance and wealth, not just in a material sense, but in a life sense, how that relationship is. If we are aligned to lack and scarcity, or if we are able to see abundance in every learning experience. Yeah? If we see things as black and white, if we believe that there is only one right way, or only one good way, right and good, black and white, yeah, those all come from a very unsophisticated way of seeing the world. They come from a certain level of scarcity, because if we say there's only one way to get there, we are automatically shutting the door for all other options. And that is often a restriction. So the hardest part, and the part that we probably spent the most time with on our journey, is to realize that our mind and our mindsets and the beliefs that are built on top of those mindsets like a castle, that they are restrictive. And they can be restrictive in different ways. Yeah, I elaborate on them on my talks about what inner darkness is. Yeah, the duality of darkness. Yeah, they can either be a world view, a life view, a mindset that is reduced, that has reduced life to the material, the 3D only. Everything that allows me to have that illusion that I live forever, yeah, because that's actually what our ego tries to do. It tries to outlive its own life expectancy, because we psychologically can't really process the fact that we're mortal. That's a very materialistic view, because it sees life as scarce. Yeah, you only have the time while you are alive in 3D. The other darkness in us, yeah, that's why we can fall off on the other end of things. And hear me out here, because many of us actually have both in us. We flip-flop, and that's not even worse. The other darkness that our psyche can fall for is that we neglect, or that we reject 3D life altogether, and we say, oh no, we're just a spirit being, I'm just a soul, and 3D isn't important. And the body and emotions, that's all lower stuff, I don't have to deal with this. Yeah. Both of these castles, okay, are delusions and fundamentally dark, because what they do is they limit our options. They limit our ability to discern. Yeah, they keep us stuck in our mind, yeah, because here on the material end of things, we constantly have to deal with the fear of the unknown. Therefore, we get pulled into this constant stress and this constant working harder and performing and perfectionism, also narcissism. And on the other end, we get pulled into this like passivity, this apathy of not doing anything, not deciding anything, yeah, believing that everything is predestined, and that we don't have to take any responsibility for life, because, eventually I'm going to be your soul self again, and then who cares? Both of these life views are limiting and ultimately untrue. All right. Spiritual realism teaches me that, wait. I may not like it, but I'm here in 3D. I wake up in this body every day, and if this body doesn't feel right, everything else kind of goes down the drainer. I go on a downward spiral. So I kind of have to honor that, yeah, that my body needs nutrients, it needs water, it needs touch, it needs shelter, it needs food, and so forth. So we have a physical 3D reality that we need to heed, that we need to contend with. But then, on the other hand, we also have our spiritual reality, yeah, where we can see ourselves as a soul with a body. Okay, and when we can see ourselves as a soul with a body, not just a soul or not just a body, but a soul with a body, we understand that this bodily experience is part of the plan, is part of the life's experience. Yeah, and now comes the big question. Now comes the consciousness and says, oh, so if that is the case, well, what is the plan? How do I know that the choices that I'm making are leading me toward this plan? How do you know that? Let's talk about this here. Let's talk spiritual realism. How do you know what your karma is, what your higher expression is? How do you discern this, and how do you make decisions in your life? And if you are finding out that you may have not been making decisions in a very conscious way, then share that too. Because just so you know, you're in good company. 85% roughly of us make completely unconscious decisions every day, based on ego, based on what we experience as normal, including allowing this inner battle, including resisting life itself, and not being able to see the true value in our experience. Up until I would say 25, I can tell you that the only kind of decisions that I was able to make were either autopilot decisions or some kind of intervention. I have experienced a lot of intervention things in my very early years, which were, very difficult, and I shouldn't have survived it. So there was a lot of things that happened in my life that kind of kept me alive, even though my choices would have killed me. Okay? Do you know what I mean? Like, I did not choose this. I cannot take any credits for this. I'm completely open about this. Yeah, so the fact that I'm able to talk to you here today is not something that I knew when I was younger, and I worked toward it, and it was clear to me. It was not clear to me at all. If you would have told me when I was 25 or 28 that I was going to become an energy healer, and I would be talking to people about this spiritual stuff, I don't want to repeat what I would have thought. It would be very derogatory. So what has allowed us to make more conscious choices in our lives? What are some of these things you've previously experienced as interventions? And if you look back, what have they provided for you? What have they revealed to you? What have they helped you to become more conscious of? Do you have this awareness? What these things in your past were for?
Hello?
Hi there.
Hi, Jona. I think for me it was showing me what was not mine and what was mine, because I took everything in. So I think slowly now, having time to unravel everything, I've seen that a lot of stuff wasn't even mine to begin with.
Okay, what exactly are you referring to? Are you talking about material belongings? Are you talking about emotions? Are you talking about judgments?
I think energies and judgments. I think a lot of them started very young, and I think manifested, and then in Australia kind of just went crazy, and then I've had to adjust to a totally different environment and totally different life without wanting to destroy myself. So it's kind of just shown me what things I did to try and get out of things, and what things I was doing that weren't conducive, but also not knowing that I could see it, not knowing that I could actually see it, but still doing it, and then forgetting.
So what I hear you say is that there was a part in you that felt it somehow, but you didn't trust in that.
I didn't trust in it. I knew in it, but I don't know, I trusted in it, but it disappeared.
Okay, yeah, that's the forgetting. That's what you mean with forgetting. So there's a once in a while you could feel it really strongly. But then on the day-to-day, it kind of goes under.
Yeah.
Kind of like that?
Yeah, exactly. And I recently had an incident where I wasn't coping. And that was me taking on too much stuff. And I had a friend come and visit and just doing normal stuff. And that took me all out of that crap that I was still in, but not realizing. So it really is kind of connecting with something that's safe, and that's becoming more and more rare for me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So let me
the contrast of what's safe for me and what's not
yes.
keeps changing.
Yeah. So here, this is the goal, right? The goal is that it doesn't change. The goal is that it's crystal clear to you. The goal is that you no longer have doubts about it. Okay? But you said something very important. You spent a lot of time in your journey on trying to figure out what's yours and what isn't. Yeah. In fact,
fixing.
At first you weren't even aware that some of the things might have not been yours, right? You tried to fix everything, right?
I tried everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
And then it dawned on you, well, maybe that is a mine to fix, or maybe that isn't even mine, right? So now this is something that many of us can relate to.
Or maybe that isn't even real anymore, and I'm carrying it in my mind.
Yeah, so thank you. That's the key word, okay? I was going to ask you, where does this come from?
Picking up thoughts.
Yes, it's all
yes.
from the mind. It's like even judgments. Think about it, judgments.
I know, but it's scary when you admit to it. It's kind of like,
yeah.
But, I know, it's like,
but it's only scary.
Out.
You know what? It's only scary if you truly believe that your mind is who you are.
Yeah, that's so true.
If you let go of that, and if you see your mind as a tool, tool. My hands are tools. My mouth is a tool. Yeah? My mind is a tool. Okay?
Yeah.
But that's not who I am. I'm not my hands, and I'm not my mouth, and I'm not my brain.
Yeah.
And I'm not my mind
getting
either.
To that.
Yes, I am more than that.
I'm having moments and hours and days of it. More and more and more. And it's like, I don't want it to go away. But it's hard. It's hard
but it's not just you. Understand that this is part of the collective programming that we're in, and this isn't a conspiracy. This is just the way it is. And I want to give you guys the karmic perspective here, because there is, if you look into the history of mankind, there's centuries and centuries and millennia where humans have had to contend with really, really harsh circumstances. Yeah, I mean, yes, the history books are full of all the aristocrats and the pharaohs and all the cool people that made history, or so they say. But what about the millions and millions and billions of lives of slaves and farmers and normal people? Yeah. As a collective, if you just look at it by numbers, the majority of humans in the past have had pretty harsh lives, lots of survival issues, lots of scarcity. Yeah, and I think it's safe to say, that we are actually living in a very prosperous time nowadays. Most of us have running water, running hot water. Yeah, we have sanitary things in our life. We can get foods, all year round. There's a lot of abundance in our life, and even if you look at the planet, even including climate change and so forth, climate change is only a problem for humans, really. Yeah, rising sea levels is only a problem for the places that are built on the coastlines. Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's not really a problem for the planet. Okay, there will still be lots of growth, and there will still be plants, and yes, cutting down the rainforests does change the weather cycle, but it's not really something the planet can't deal with. It is only a problem for us because we've built, these cities or our civilizations in certain climate zones, and yes, that will change a lot. So, but if you look at the world as it is, without a judgment, you will see that it's actually extremely affluent, extremely abundant. And that, in conjunction with our connection with nature and our connection with ourselves, should teach us something. Namely, that no matter how hard we're trying to cultivate or to tame nature, if we really want to tap into the abundance of nature, we also need to adhere to it. It's the higher power. It is. Okay? But the point that I was trying to make is that when we rely on our mind, as a measuring tool for, decision making, we have a problem. It gets manipulated from all kinds of, or not. It's not always a directed manipulation, but it gets influenced by so many factors that are out of our control. So we have everything from social media, we have family traditions, we have cultural traditions, we have religious traditions, we have school, we have our societies, our nations, we have, a history as, tribe. We have sort of all different layers of influences, including, the weather conditions, the collective weather conditions that constantly produce new impulses for our mind. And if we identify with that, we have a problem, because neither of these things can be influenced by us. So the key, guys, to connecting the dots and understanding karma and really getting into a place where you begin to see what you truly are, and then become able to make choices based on what you truly are, that is the task. That is already programmed into you. It's programmed into all of us humans, but you are already aware of it. Now you just need a roadmap, because you find yourself in a place where you find or where you experience this as a battle, where you experience this as a hardship, as a lack of something. And that's where your mind is failing you, guys. That's where, both kind of darknesses have a feast on you. Your task is to cut through that. And how can you do this? You have to learn to use your consciousness. You have to learn how to use your, if you will, your higher mind, the part in you, and it's not mystical at all. It's very methodical, it's very systematic, and everybody can learn this. You have to learn how to attune yourself to truth, so that whether your ego likes it or not, you can at least identify what's true. And I'm not talking about relativism. I'm not talking about what's true for you and blah, blah, blah. No. I'm talking about what's true in the sense of what is abundant, what leads you to growth, what leads you to your higher path, to your higher expression. And that's not relativistic, guys. It's the same for all of us, because the goal is the same. We all want truth and freedom, abundance, love, peace, and happiness. We're designed that way. And the seed to grow into our higher potential is in all of us. So as we get born into this 3D being, that we experience here as our physical body, we go through different stages, and these stages are the same for our spiritual journey. There is a plan, there is a life plan, not just for the physical body, also for our soul. Except for that the life cycle of our soul is a little bigger. It's not just one life, it's not just these 70, 80 years if you're lucky. It's multiple lifetimes and multiple dimensions. It's not just linked to lifetimes. So many of you are already familiar with past life regression and things like this, and I've mentioned this on other occasions that I'm not a big fan of it, because people get distracted with this, because they make it more important what they've done in a past lifetime, and it's too much of a trap for your ego, because who wants to remember a lifetime as a slave? Yeah, sometimes we do, and if we do, then we think that there's something wrong with that, or that we have to become an activist and become sort of this revenge warrior, okay, for something that happened 10,000 years ago. That's not what discerning truth means, guys. You can do past life regressions, you can do karma work to understand some impulses in you better. There are different kinds of karma work. There's a karma work that you can do on a psychological level called family constellation. That actually helps you to understand some of these very, very common and typical sort of older sibling, middle sibling, younger sibling, single child, mom and dad dynamics. Yeah, then you can do karmic family work, where you investigate, your lineage, your ancestry, and allow that to come in and let go of the things that are no longer needed for you. This can be very, very revealing. Here, the heart warriors among you have done this with me, 4 weeks ago or so, and it was really, really deep. Yeah, the connections that we can make, and also the choices that can derive from that, because you realize that this is all shit, that happened 200 years ago in your lineage, and it has no significance for you anymore. You can still feel the residue of it, but it is no longer who you are. And then you can do karmic relationship work, where you understand that these relationships that you have, whether they're positive or negative, whether they're traumatic or abusive, toxic or beautiful, that they all contribute, or that they all function as a mirror for your inner relationship. It teaches you the healthier ways of interacting with other soul cells. And if you get caught in codependency, or if your beliefs and your mindsets are still that you have to sacrifice something or work really hard or be somebody else in order to deserve love, well, then your relationships are going to show you that, because that is not based on abundance. That is not a growth-oriented mindset. That's a lack-oriented mindset. It means that there's only so much love available, and for you, in order to get some love back, or to get validated, or get attention, or whatever it is that you're seeking, belonging, you have to give something up. That's not how this goes, guys. Yeah, this is stuff that you can learn in consciousness development, because you realize that the most fundamental relationship that you can have is the one with yourself. Not in a narcissistic way, but in a way of actually cultivating this relationship with yourself. Those of you who were here on Saturday with the Connect with Your True Self session, you got a little taste of this. And there's a very beautiful True Self talk, by the way, that you can see on my YouTube channel, about the most important journey of your life. Yeah, we uncovered that on Saturday here in the free True Self session. And then, you'll have all these energetic and etheric and, sort of extrasensory experiences, and they also have a life cycle. They also need to be learned to be discerned. Yeah, there is, especially in times like this, people are very, very susceptible to spiritual ego traps, to, this new age deception, yeah, where you just got to go into passivity, or where you just, kind of reject your 3D life altogether. In times like this, it's extremely important to know how to spiritually discern. And most of my clients, I don't know if this is you too, but most of the people that I talk to, they actually come from negative spiritual experiences, either with spiritual teachers, or with spiritual groups, or with religions or spiritual teachings that has driven them into an even deeper conflict. Who of you has had those kind of negative experiences with spirituality? Yeah, This is big, guys. This is really big. That for the next 10 years, this will be the biggest subject. Yeah? The ability to spiritually and etherically discern. Because as we are all growing into our energetic sensitivity, yeah, our extra senses that we already have, that allows us to discern energies, yeah, like Sean shared here, that allows us to discern what's ours and what's not, yeah, what's intrinsically true and what's not, what's intrinsically based on love and what isn't, yeah. That needs to be trained as well. That's the energy management training. Yeah, you have to understand what these different sensations mean. You have to build a lexicon of this. You have to increase your energetic literacy. Yeah, and then internalize it with yourself so that you know what kind of signals you are experiencing here and what they mean. If you don't have that, you're going to make everything a sign. And you're fundamentally back to the Middle Ages, where it's superstitious, where you, depending on the castle that you have in your mind, yeah, project things into what is happening. Yeah, it's a big, fat darkness, guys. It's a big, fat spiritual trap. And when I talk to people and ask them, well, what do you perceive as the biggest problem in your life's journey? You know what they'll say? I can't discern. I don't know the difference between my ego and my true self. I don't know what is true to me. I'm constantly questioning my own perception. I'm constantly questioning myself. I don't know who I am. That's why I call this the most important journey in your life. Because how can you make conscious choices? How can you know your true value? How can you know your purpose? How can you make choices that move you toward abundance and love and growth if you don't even know yourself, if you don't even have a 0 point here? And this life plan, yeah, these stages that we go through, and many of you have heard this, and there's actually a lot of metaphysical truth to this, kind of happens in these 7-year cycles. Now, this may only apply to humans on this planet Earth, because it is possible that that's just, sort of influenced by some of the astrological, astronomical constellations. It's possible. We don't know this yet until we have good relationships with other species on other planets. There will be many unanswered questions because we can only infer from the physical laws and the psychological laws on this planet. Yeah, so you see, there's a certain neutrality that speaks in me here. Yeah, I understand the limitations of my own beliefs because I know that they, at this point here, can only be verified for 3D on planet Earth. Okay, yeah, so that's part of spiritual realism, is that you understand how far your beliefs and your faith have validity. Yeah, there are certain things you can prove, you can validate from within yourself, and certain things you can only sort of calibrate yourself against. And you can say, from my today's perspective, from my today's consciousness level, this appears as true. Yeah? But because I am an organic being and I keep learning and I want to keep learning, yeah, it is possible that my mind, this sort of, tiny tool that we have, expands until tomorrow. Tomorrow, the world can look differently for my mind, and therefore I can come to different conclusions. This is not relativistic either, guys, just on a side note. This is the reality of our mind. There is no absolute truth with our mind, and therefore it isn't really a good tool to measure things like value or validity. So our job here is to go through these different cycles, to learn how to live in this physical body, to know how to deal with all this energetic impact, to to learn how to deal with our emotions, with our psyche, with our mind, to learn to deal with the temptations, the need for material security on one hand, and the deception of escapism on the other hand. We have to learn to discern what our true needs and our true wants are. We have to learn how to actually embody, well, first for most of us it's actually feeling it, what love is, what unconditional love is, not the love with sacrifice. That's a toxic system. That's a belief that we have, that love is scarce. Okay, so we have to learn to accept abundant love in our life, unconditional love. And then this whole embodiment deal, where we actually have to change things in our life, the way we live, whom we live with, what kind of jobs we do to make money and so forth. Those are things that every person is going to go through on their journey. Until we get to a place where we start thinking about legacy, where we start thinking about what comes after us. And finally then a place where integrity and congruence become the most important lessons for us. Because we've realized that the less inner resistance we have, the more congruent we become. The less battle we have inside, the more peace we feel, the more value we feel, the more we are aware of our true power as human with a consciousness. And that's then, guys, when you understand the true meaning of abundance. That's then when you know the true worth of who you are. You are a magnificent being that has incarnated into 3D to practice transcending pain and negativity and pessimism, restriction, into love, into freedom, into truth. That is what you are. It's a practice round. And please understand that this is an extremely sacred thing. You are an extremely sacred being. That power is worth a lot in the spiritual world. And someone who goes on autopilot neglects it, rejects it, and never experiences it because it won't open up for you. Those of you who are opening themselves up for it realize that you did have a choice at some point in your life. You could have lived on autopilot. You could have conformed. You could have done all these things that everybody else does. But there was something in you that guided you to do something different, either through intervention or conscious choice. The more conscious your choices are, the more powerful they are, the higher your manifestation power. And that is spiritual realism, guys. It's not mystical. There are many mystical aspects to this. And it's the beauty of this. But at the end of the day, it's a tool like any other. We just need to learn how to wield it. And because we have the seed in us, because we have this divine spark in us, everybody can experience it. Everybody can internalize it. That's true equity, guys. So with these words, I would like to end and hopefully, helped you with some discernment, some choice making here, moving forward. Understand that this is the time. And if you feel an impulse to make a big change in your life. Yeah, and it feels like it does for Tina, who shared so graciously earlier. Do not hesitate. This whole month of May is about clarity, it's about simplicity. And by going back and forth and evaluating all the pros and cons and what ifs and all that, you just creating more fog again. You're complicating something that your system already knows is not very complicated. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's simple. See you guys soon on Friday for the energy update, and wishing you a wonderful discerning. Bye-bye. Welcome to our Only Life workshop this year in Iceland, and we will get inspired, learn how to overcome our old ways and learn new ways. Join us to this only in-person energy healing and training seminar in Iceland this year. Learn from us how to test and discern truth and its dualities. Explore how to implement conscious awakening into the physical. See how it's done. And even if you just want to come to Iceland to explore this magnificent island, the midnight sun, the waterfalls, the geysers, or stop by while traveling to Europe or to the United States, then check this out. Either way, we're going to have an unforgettable experience together, spending 24-hour daylight in one of the most sacred places on this planet. Tickets and registration is now online. You can plan your summer vacation with us in June in Iceland.